Good morning. Can you hear me?
Yeah,
Excellent.
it was just me and Hesham's AI bot. So
Who's Hesham?
um, he attends meetings regularly, but I guess he's got this note taker bot here for him, which is kind of interesting.
Huh. Okay. Well, let's see. I'm trying to figure out where my files are. We're just gonna give it a couple more minutes just to see who else might join us. And then we will proceed and just do what needs to be done with what we got. Oh, I'm gonna step away and be back in 2 minutes.
Okay.
Did something you posted in the chat? I missed it.
No,
I believe so. Yeah.
no, Sal had commented on Slack that they won't be able to make the meeting, but that was the only thing I saw.
Okay. I can. So it's not like a reading period, Mark just needed to step away for a second?
Right. I assume he's grabbing coffee or something.
Gotcha.
I had anticipated seeing Olu here. We tend to start our meetings in my company like 5 or 10 minutes after the hour to give people breaks between meetings. So
Yeah,
it's kind of rolled over into this.
we did the same thing. Let me.
Alrighty. How is everyone doing?
Doing pretty
Good.
well.
Long time no see, but August has been taken up by travel for me. So
Hopefully fun travel.
yes, very fun. I was in Japan for a while.
Oh, nice.
Yeah. Then my 99-year-old grandma passed, so I had to go deal with that, but that wasn't all too bad because she was 99. Anyways, let's see.
Sorry to hear, but I get where you're coming from.
You know, as I say, she outlived the Queen of England. I was asking her to please outlive Putin, but she wouldn't do that for me. You know, you can't have it all. All right. So let's see. Let me say that right now, I think the only document we need to finish is the AVS governance. I would like to dedicate a few minutes later on to see what the next steps might be and kind of refresh our memory on what the goals would be to hit by end of this calendar year. So we're on the same page of where we're headed with that. And there were a couple of emails on like various governance documents that flew around that I need to, like one from Olu that I need to open and see what she said. I can also say that we are now evaluating edge computing in a couple of places at the firm, and there was a very interesting meeting yesterday at Station SIG, from my perspective certainly, because I'm a proponent of using confidential computing for workload identity, and attestation is a key part of that. So that discussion was very encouraging to me. It's good to see that people are thinking about it. So certainly that tells me that we're moving in the right direction. And I found in my conversations with my coworkers about computer computing 3 actual mentions in actual governance documents that I wasn't aware of that they were able to find. I emailed that to the GRC mailing list so you can see for yourselves that they are short mentions, but that's how it all starts. So I think the ball is rolling.
Okay, and is IM in me that just having trouble with the LFX platform thing logging in, so I'm gonna send her the link that I used.
Do you need the link?
I've got it. I just wanted to mention that she was IMing me in the background, unable to connect for some reason. So
Oh, okay. All right. Oh, hi, Olu.
it's like still connecting.
Olu, you're on mute, but I do have a question for you since you're here. You emailed the mailing list with something. I slept through my alarm this morning, so fortunately I work from home, so I jumped right out of bed, but I was not able to see open the document that I promised I'd open by this meeting. Hi, Nikolai.
Good morning. Hi. Good to see you again after quite a break.
Yes, no more breaks for me for a while. Olu, do you want to speak to the email you sent to the mailing list yesterday?
Yes. So what it is, I've been trying to map the GDPR as an example to the CC confidential computing. So what I've done is review the relevant section that I've seen so far of the GDPR and try to match it to confidential computing, looking at data security and integrity is what we're focusing on. Not so much as the availability. I'm just trying to see if I can get the document out quickly and then share it. Just 1 second.
Okay.
Yeah. So that is the intent. And then the format that I'm using, this is where I wanted feedback before I go into a deep dive. Is this the right direction? Before I get too much into the details.
Okay.
Just bear with me 1 second as I look for it.
Yeah, while Olu's getting that up, sort of like the slightly wider view here is Mark had sent out, at least to some of us, if not the list, 3 or so documents that he just alluded to of these are like regulatory things that or compliance documents that already mention confidential computing. We also wanted to do sort of the complement of that, where documents like GDPR will set some requirements that we think are satisfied by confidential computing. So if we can make that clear to people, then that also helps with adoption.
Okay. Oh, my video is on. Oh.
We can see your screen. Yeah.
Okay. Okay. So excellent. So so starting from the left-hand side, I put the relevant articles of the GDPR, the different sections there. My intention, actually, I'm not sure, maybe to put the link, but anyway, I put the relevant article or the regulation. And then this is precisely what the regulation talks about. I did not minimize it or anything like that, just so to give the reader a comprehensive view of why I'm saying this belongs to a certain place. And the reason being, number one, fully understanding it, and then if people wanted to give feedback, if I'm not tagging it properly, then at least they can see what I'm reading. And then what I've done is I've emboldened the what I think is very, very relevant. So topics, sorry, not topic, the wording that is relevant, and why I'm saying it is don't let me do this. Okay. And why I'm saying, so I grouped it into, so the description of the regulation, and then the this is now where column C, D, and E is where I put the confidential computing, protection of data at rest, that is the storage side, protection in transit, networking, protecting data in use. Yeah, so the processing side. So those are the three. And then what I've done is, okay, I cannot remember why I did this squiggly one different. But I checked marked to say, okay, this article is relevant to all three areas. Yeah, and likewise, I've done it for article 5, 25, and you can see the remaining. I haven't gone, like I said, I didn't want to go too deep because I wanted feedback. AI, I don't think I started on AI as well. Okay, good. So AI, EU AI, the Act, I did something similar as well. And then I talked about, so all this is coming directly from the article. I did not make any changes at all. Like I said, I wanted the reader to understand, and then highlighting the key areas, so that when you come to look at C, D, and E, you can see whether or not it's true that we're matching it. So that is the approach I'm taking. I cannot remember why this quickly thing. I have to think about what it is I was trying to highlight there. Okay, so that is the approach I was taking to talk about the relevant sections. So if this is, so I can share this, and if I think I sent it out yesterday. If this is in conformance, maybe you guys can digest at your leisure. If there's something that you will see me add that I'm not adding, please let me know. So I'm going to use these as a template for the remainder, but I just wanted to put it out there, get feedback, direction before the deep dive of the other ones as well, and also the EU.
What is the meaning of the two different check mark icons that you have? One has a little gear around it.
I know. I cannot remember why I did this. I
Okay.
have to find out. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. It's been a while. I cannot remember. There's a reason, but I have to think about why I did the different
They're very pretty.
squiggly.
I just, you know.
Yeah, I wanted to. I have to think about. There was a reason why I did that. I cannot remember top of my head. When I go back again, I start digging into it. I'll remember. Yeah.
So, in our governance speak, you know, when you look at the system that every large regulated institution uses, called Archer, I believe it's like a vendor product. They have control objectives and they have control procedures. And control objectives and control procedures. So control procedures, they roll up to control objectives. So to the first order of approximation, the control objective is a more high-level statement about what it is you're trying to accomplish. And your control procedure will be all the different things that you need to do towards that end. And control procedures generate evidence, and to the evidence across all control procedures, they will convince the auditor that a control objective has been made in a, for a particular application, for instance. And both control objectives and control procedures have scopes. So a jurisdiction typically would be a scope on the, I'm trying to think, could it be on one or the other? But you can basically think about jurisdiction, like, for instance, your Article 3. That would be something that outlines where would the control procedure apply. So when we deploy an application, we will deploy it in a region. And then depending on which region, we will run this filter, and it'll say, okay, you are in scope for the following control objective or for following control procedure based on this filter. I do not know if in that particular case, if necessarily you have, the 3 columns, right? Because Article 3 effectively says this article will apply in following jurisdiction, and then you kind of have to see, what else is in there that falls, under. But the jurisdiction filter is just like it's just a geography. But of course, there are others, right? So, for instance, you can say, this is in scope if you're dealing with like highly classified data. Again, it doesn't say what it is you're supposed to protect. It just simply says, read the rest of this if you map this filter or if you match the filter. But other than that, I don't have any immediate feedback I look forward to.
Okay.
So
Okay.
for maybe for Alec or Nikolai, if you think about trying to provide collateral for customers so that they know how to value your confidential computing offerings, being able to point them to the CCC website and getting a document like this, would that be helpful? Would a different format be necessary, or something like this suffices?
So the perspective is the customer is a regulator, not a regulator, sorry, a compliance officer, someone who works maybe in the position that Mark holds at JPMC, and they want to know whether or not they are safe to use a particular offering in a cloud service provider. They would come to this document for guidance on whether or not their bank would be within EU compliance for the use of our product. Am I thinking about this right?
That was very specific, but sure.
Well, yeah, I'm looking for an example that would work. Okay, so now I'm trying to think of who's going to seek out this document, right? Who's going to type in search terms that would lead them to this document? And if I think about customers going, for example, to ISO websites and searching for confidential computing, making that association and then thinking, okay, am I meeting my ISO standards if I use a cloud service provider offering? They'd equally come to the CCC and look for information there. There they would find this document and they'd go through all of the guidelines that are typical of organizations that are governed by compliance standards, and they could find all of those rules here from NIST, from ISO, from EU, and they could quickly look and see, yeah, I'm okay using this product because it has checkboxes in the right columns. Is that
Or
the use?
or somebody goes to an Azure website and when they're looking at the available offerings there, maybe something for ACC says that that these Azure compute instances are they help you satisfy compliance requirements while deploying things to the cloud. And then it would link to the CCC webpage where we have one or more articles on things like GDPR, the EU AI Act, that sort of thing.
Okay, that kind of turned it around. So the search order is, I've got a business problem. I find a solution that's advertised by a cloud service provider, Azure in this case. Then I say, yep, this solution works. It satisfies my business problem. Let me see if I'm okay to use it. The Azure doc would have a link back to this document on the CCC website, and you could read through this document and say, here are the frameworks, the regulatory frameworks that confidential computing is compliant with. Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
That's cool. That helps me frame it. I mean, the reason I'm asking these questions is I always wonder how someone is going to feel the need to read a document, and they're looking for a specific answer. And
Yeah.
and nowadays I'm thinking of how will this document feed into an AI system, right? That will help the AI system produce the right answer. And that's kind of where I'm coming from. And it sounds right. Okay, so having said that, I can see where this will help, and I'll review it from that perspective, but I'd need to obviously look through the doc and see what I
Mhm.
think.
Yeah. So I have some 5 cents. I think we need to make early on a distinction between like what I think Alec was saying, like a compliance officer, or maybe you, Dan, were saying that. So a compliant officer. Is the compliance officer trying to understand if using a specific technology is compliant with whatever regulations they are, like basically, are they allowed to use it? Or is the compliance officer looking for a solution and hoping like, oh, maybe this technology will help me solve whatever compliance challenge we have? And these are two very different things. And we kind of maybe should decide what is the mission of this technology, like confidential computing per se. I rather think it's the latter, like it helps solve some challenges. It cannot kind of solve GDPR challenges, but it can address specific points of it. And this should be, I think, the way we should approach this. We should highlight which specific articles of GDPR, specific aspects of confidential computing can help solve. It's not like, you know, you slap confidential computing and that's it, you have GDPR covered. That doesn't work like that. But it does
absolutely.
solve some challenges, and we should point those out.
Right.
Yeah.
So
That's
so
exactly.
Sorry, that is the direction I was thinking when I was looking at this, to look at what is the relevant one that will help solve a problem. Sorry, I just wanted to chime in there.
Yeah, exactly. So I think you're on the right track. What I would add is that, you know, specific articles and how it addresses, in which way. So for example, GDPR has this, like, you know, things about like, you know, specific scope of processing and so on. So of course, confidential computing per se doesn't solve this. However, confidential computing can help solve or restrict the scope, because once you have, you know, deployed the workload, you could restrict, or you know, the scope of the processing, because you cannot update the application anymore. For example, in the case of, I don't know, SGX enclave workloads, because the enclave becomes static. So this is one way you could address this, like, you know, scope. You can freeze the scope. However, of course, you know, if the application does more than what the user agreed to, then it's a different problem.
yeah. So the set of you know, requirements comes, if you remember the diagram we have in one of our document describing governance. Remember, there was an entity relationship diagram that I have in a certain place that basically says these are all your drivers of compliance, right? So some of them could be regulations, so GDPR falls under that, but some could be, you know, contracts that I have with customers, or sometimes it's just internal policy, and there's a sum total of those that'll tell you what it is you're supposed to be doing in a particular context. So GDPR becomes, in that sense, one of the inputs into this process. And what we typically do is, there is a, say we'd like to allow a use of a, I don't know, a particular service for our developers to use. So I don't know, let's pick one at random, AWS Redshift. So there are basically two ways you can do this in our environment. One is we have a system that will, you pick the service from the catalog, and when you use the service, where there are certain templates, and you will know that the thing gets deployed in a manner that is that will satisfy all auditory all requirements. You know, the auditor is going to be happy, because you effectively these scripts will set up the AWS Redshift instance in the proper configuration. Or And you can pick up any service you want, but then you have to go satisfy all the requirements yourself. You have to go, generate all the right evidence and figure it all out. It's a much heavier lift. It's not impossible. And I'm aware of one instance where somebody created an internal policy. I do not believe it's driven by any external requirement today, but they say if you're using AWS Redshift to process highly confidential data, which is our highest classification, then you must turn on Nitro. Okay, so somebody just decided to do that. I haven't chased down who it was and why they made that decision. All right, but this is the one that just falls to internal policy. But in other cases, it may be that there is a very, very clear link that in this particular case, in order to satisfy this particular regulation that you fall under in your context, you have to do certain things, and they're very, very clear. And then just, ultimately, it all comes down to the auditor will want to see evidence that you met a requirement. So what evidence is that? Is the biggest question you need to ask. So the first one is the filter, right? So what applies to you? And we have tools for that. And the second one is what is the evidence? And then the evidence may be done automatically. Like in our case, we have these frameworks that, if you, like it's effectively service catalog, pick from service catalog, you're golden. Or in other cases, no, it's not in the service catalog, or for some reason you want to brew your own because whatever, the other thing is too slow or doesn't get configured right for you. So long as you meet all the evidence requirements, you're golden. So this is why, by the way, when we write our governance patterns, we pay such close attention to this. These are the types of things you need to do, and these are the kinds of evidences that you need to produce. Now, ours are driven by just cybersecurity, people looking at it and saying, what is it that you need to do? So you're not just blindly checking boxes and hoping for the best, right? In our case, we're actually this is why I'm passionate about this group, is because we actually get to create requirements that will get you more secure, will make sure that you sleep better at night, and this technology delivers something to you, and there are no blind spots. But in my there is no guarantee that every regulation out there is written that same way. So again, I don't know if I'm answering your question. I'm just providing additional information. But from my perspective, how do I know that I meet GDPR? Well, I ensure that everything that's in scope is covered, and I ensure that the auditor will look at it and say, "Oh yeah, we understand why you did this, and yes, you did it correctly based on the evidence you've provided." Because if one or the other misses, then either you have a scope miss and you should have done something and you didn't just because you didn't know, or you just didn't do it right. And both are bad.
I don't know if a document like this informs people who sets the evidence guidelines, or if this document itself serves as a piece of evidence.
Well, I guess only detailed reading will tell you. So, like, for instance, in the left column here, they say, if an AI system is configured high risk, if it is used as a safety component of a product or whatever. So then your evidence may be a decision that is made not automatically, but procedurally. A bunch of people got in the room, and when they were designing the system, they are basically asking, what are our safety components here? Oh, and that becomes a scope.
Okay. So you mentioned the Archer product or tool.
Yeah.
Is that an ecosystem that you think we need to influence?
So Archer is it's a template that every organization fills out as they see fit. My understanding is, and it's not an ecosystem as much. It's a vendor product. It's pretty rich. It allows you to do many things. It's like a database with a schema, and then you decide, and there are basically 4 levels in it. There are standards, and you define what your standards are. You give them numbers. You know, our standards 071 is probably not going to be the same as used in, I don't know, Purdue Pharma. And then under that, there are control objectives, which again, you define, and you put the content in them. Control procedures under that, implementation steps under that. So I need to see if they have some sort of default content that people use, but I know that you can do Archer well, you can do Archer poorly.
Sure.
We're somewhere in between. Right, we're not perfect, but it's effectively a way for an organization to document to the auditor what it is they're going to do, because the auditor will never say, this is how you must do it. They only ask, this is what we expect.
Yeah.
It's not about the how.
Yeah. Okay. So that kind of answers the question. Then I wasn't sure if there was an ecosystem of products like Archer that have built-in like evidence examples, and we would want to get confidential computing added into this, into all of those products.
Yeah, maybe a tall order, but I will ask around how how we do it, do a little bit more detail, perhaps get back to you if I find anything interesting.
Okay, thanks.
But the fact that there is a standard control objective, control procedure, and implementation step, that fact doesn't change. Archer just captures it.
Okay.
So I want to go back to my earlier question. Who are going to be the consumers of this document? I think of like 4 categories of consumers of CC documents, and it's like buyers of CC products. And I think that's who you said this document was targeted towards. Then there's compliance officers that work within organizations that make sure that product meets their security standards. Then there's developers who want to use the products that we're putting together. And then there's standards bodies. So this particular SIG, we've kind of been producing documents that were intended to be consumed by standards bodies. This document feels like it's more intended to be consumed by buyers of CC products. Do I have that much right?
Yeah, I mean, it should be something that all of the member companies can point to help convince their customers that this is a valuable technology.
Got it. So the end consumer of this document will be a prospective buyer of a CC product, some Azure customer, Google Cloud customer that will then come to this document and be like, okay, because this Google Cloud product is advertised as being CC, then I'm okay to use it. They have to make that leap of faith, right? Customer wants to buy a product. Customer understands that they're regulated by one of the regulatory restrictions in the first column. Customer comes to this document, looks for a checkbox, and they want to see 3 checkboxes there. Once they see all 3 checkboxes there, then they know I'm okay to use this product because it's got 3 checkboxes. So that means it meets the EU AI Act of 2024.
Something like that, yeah.
Okay. Does that sit well with you, Mark? Does it make sense that a person who is buying a CC product would come to this document and see the 3 checkboxes and conclude that because of the 3 checkboxes, they can purchase that product, and the regulators within the company or compliance officers within the company, and I'm looking at you, will say, oh yeah, 3 checkboxes here, good to go.
So one caution there. A checkbox to me just means this product is, in theory, capable of it. So it provides, I don't know, just, it's a tool in the toolbox. It's not the finished product, right? So, of course, if a database does not, provide data encryption at all, then it's more challenging to deploy it. But in reality, what ends up happening is just because it's capable doesn't mean it's been deployed right, configured right. It doesn't mean that the evidence has been collected correctly, right? So for instance, the database may say, yeah, we provide data interest encryption, but some other thing says that, oh, you also need to manage your own keys, and the database is agnostic of that, right? So you may, just because the product has something on the box that says, yeah, here's a check mark, we're capable, that is not an automatic guarantee in and of itself. You still need to do all the right things, integrating it correctly, deploying it correctly, and making sure that the end-to-end works, and only then are you compliant. And then if the product doesn't provide this functionality, then I don't know, maybe you stick it into Anjuna and you run it that way, or maybe you write your own wrapper around it to protect data at rest by some sort of a, file system filter, and you're still going to be okay. So again, it's a tool, it's a screwdriver, but how skilled is the person operating the screwdriver will actually do the right thing. But
Okay, I think this is
as a guide to a developer, saying in order to develop your product correctly, these are the kinds of things the capabilities you need to think about, so that the product allows one to have it deployed correctly, perhaps without too much additional headache. That can be useful in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Okay, well, I think we used, this has been good feedback for me at least. I think also for Olu. I see Olu taking a lot of notes there. Probably used more of your agenda time than we anticipated.
Oh no, this is great. This is actually very good discussion, and I am glad we had it, because this is the devil in the detail showing its head.
Mm-hmm. So we'll probably try to get feedback from some of the other member companies and see if this sort of thing would be helpful for them to help promote the adoption of confidential computing, and make any adjustments if necessary, and then frame it up into some way that we can put it up on the website.
Okay.
Cool. And Olu, to you, if you could come up with like an intro paragraph that explains who the audience is for this document and what kind of web searching activity would lead them to discover the existence of this document, that would be super helpful to me. I'm just trying to figure out what the mindset of the person coming and discovering this document and being tempted to read it, what that mindset is. Because obviously it's going to be a big doc. Why would I be motivated to read it?
Okay.
Yeah, and I imagine the way this would be packaged would be like, here's this table, but it's in a PDF. So you've got like little intro thing that says, you're trying to satisfy some sort of compliance problem. And for this particular, if we made like, I don't know if we'll make like 4 separate docs, one for each different compliance document that we're trying to address, like GDPR and the EU AI Act and so forth, or if we would just have one giant one that has a whole bunch of things in it that we keep updating. But I don't think we'd ever publish this just as like, here's a spreadsheet.
Yeah, that's super helpful, because that was kind of confusing me. Because if I'm a generic citizen and I come to this thing and the first paragraph is only about NIST, I'm going to be thinking, well, I'm not North American. Goodbye, doc. So separating it out per framework, I think is super helpful, because it targets it to a interested audience.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and the only reason why I grouped it, so fantastic feedback. The only reason I grouped it up here would be this will be the master template for the others. And then it's easier to look at it all at once. But when it's going to be published on the site, it'll be taken apart as you suggested.
Cool.
Okay. Thank you for the feedback. Very, very good. Thank you so much.
Okay.
good job.
Thanks for
Thank
bringing
you
it,
for
yeah.
doing this. This is useful.
No problem.
All right. So we have about 15 minutes left. There are a couple of things we can do. I do not think we'll be able to do both of them. One is there is the AVS governance document that I'm hoping to button up, and so we can move on from it. There was some feedback collected on the document from a variety of people. I also presented it to the attestation SIG, and I got some comments from there. And that the other thing I'm hoping to accomplish is to take a look at our plans for the rest of the calendar year, and just make sure we're on track. What else needs to be done? So it just sort of takes a perspective. Do you have any preference on which to do? And then just had to drop. So perhaps taking a look at AVS governance for just a minute, and then we can decide our plans in email with perhaps more people reading. So how about that? Can you see my screen?
Yes, I can see it.
Okay, can you read it? Should I zoom in a little bit more?
Good for me.
Yeah, better to zoom on the content.
Do you want me to zoom on the content? I can. It's not hard.
Yeah, that would be good. That'd be helpful.
All right, so I just want to go straight to the comments. I'm assuming everyone has read the document. So let's just go in order. Thomas is saying something about verifier owner in the RATS architecture may be confusing in this context. Do you agree? If I could just put a footnote and saying the owner is different from verifier owner, but I don't know if.
How is it different? I would have thought verifier owner is exactly what you meant here. It's the owner of the attestation verification service is the verifier owner, right?
So, good question. So let's take Microsoft Attestation Service as an example. It's a service. Microsoft operates it, right? Who owns it?
Microsoft.
Microsoft owns it.
So Microsoft would be the verifier owner.
But in the comment, Thomas says verifier owner is somebody who supplies the appraisal policy, which is then not.
I'm gonna have to go back to the RATS document. Maybe I had that wrong, and if so, I apologize.
Well, this is why I'm saying it's like I'm looking at it. Are we confusing people here or not?
Hang on. Verifier owner. Endorser reference. In some scenarios, the endorser, reference value provider, and verifier owner may need to trust the verifier before giving. Oh, so the verifier, right, is reference values.
So this is let's go to what the sentence says. It says that there is a service. It's owned by someone, right? Much like a car I rent may be owned by someone other than myself, right? Or like in this case, let's say I'm trying to send a kid off to school, but I'm not driving the kid. The car may be owned by a car rental company. It may be operated by another member of my family, right? And the payload is the child going to school. That's outside of RATS. This is the meaning of the sentence. And the sentence says that the owner of the service or the operator of the service are both potential threat vectors. And as such, their actions may need to be monitored, right? So in case of AVS, the owner may be Microsoft, as they own the service, they can turn the power off to it, they charge for it, whatever. There's this ownership component to it. The operator may be one of my own employees. In this case, the verifier owner is actually in RATS architecture is actually close to operator. You go and put some policies on the thing. So that's an act of operating the service, right? And both of those entities, from my perspective, may be potential threat vectors. So the way I deal with my own employee is, well, there is a threat of firing or maybe legal action. And for that, all I need is to have a tamper-proof log of their actions, right? And the owner is Microsoft. And is that a threat vector? Well, potentially. I mean, I would like them outside of my TCB. And perhaps there are some contractual obligations to that effect, right? So then the question that Thomas poses is, okay, will it confuse somebody who's familiar with RATS? And this is what I wanted to pose here.
Do you care if I share the RATS architecture diagram really quick, and we can talk for a quick second? Because I
sure.
think there's some ambiguity there. So let me do this. And I see where the confusion is coming from, I think. Can you see it? Tell me if you can see that. So can you see my mouse? Let me just see, give mouse. I don't see a way to do a laser pointer with this thing here. Well, here, let me do this. We've got this verifier thing here, right? Can you guys see that?
Yes.
Somebody owns that verifier. We don't know who it is.
Well,
in the
verifier
case of
owner
MAA,
is supposed to.
Right. In the case of MAA, Microsoft operates this verifier, and Microsoft wrote the code. You can consider Microsoft to be owning this verifier, but the terminology verifier owner means something completely different. It is the person that supplies the appraisal policy for evidence.
Yeah.
So the author of attestation policy is what RATS calls verifier owner. And I don't think they have a term that applies to the person who physically operates and provides that box, which you're calling the verifier owner.
Well, I guess I'm calling that entity, in that case, the owner, and I'm calling what the RATS called verifier owner the operator.
So maybe
But
you can,
like I could also see it reversed without changing the meaning of what I was hoping to say, because you just said Microsoft, operates the verifier. So in that case, they're the operator. They wrote
provider.
Right. So to me, verifier owner is like kind of an unfortunate term, because I would call them appraisal policy is to me it's part of operating the verifier, right?
Right, the relying party.
Because they may be owned by someone else, but I am supplying the policy to it.
Right. I totally see the point you're trying to make, Mark, and I totally see why it's causing confusion to a person who is intimately familiar with RATS terminology.
Yeah.
I would say, the AVS provider and operator, just to get away from the word owner. Maybe that works. I don't know. What do you think? I think that's what the comment in the document is trying to get to.
Provider, operator of the AVS. Okay. So then what we're going to say is replace owner with provider to avoid this confusion. And then we can move on.
Yep.
Excellent. All right. So this is from Mohammed. Mohammed is a researcher and is, his thinking is very, very formal. So this is why the discussion that, you can read here. So he was hoping that we have a precise specification, about building trust in AVS, which is, as we see in discussions about governance, these are not precise specifications. They're not sort of, they're not mathematical in construction. They are not just, their governance is just philosophically not that. Tends to be technology agnostic. It tends to be, you know, done in terms of some wishy-washy terms, now whether I like it or not. So I just wanted to see and Mohammed is not part of our group. So
Can you share your screen again, Mark?
oh yeah,
I stole your screen. Sorry
of
about that.
course, yeah, of course.
There we go.
So again, in the patterns language, the forces these are the kinds of things that you need to consider in order to know that you need a solution. So that's what the forces are. There is a problem, right? The problem is you have an ATS. It's highly trusted. As a result, we need to make sure it's trustworthy. And under the forces section, it simply says these are the kinds of things you need to pay attention to when devising a solution. So when he says, I want a precise specification, I'm not sure how to respond. And like he uses sort of fighting language here towards the end. If the governance document is supporting broken solutions, it's a different story. So I don't know how to.
I know him quite well. Yeah, I know him quite well, and this is it always ends up like that. And I would suggest basically to kind of to ease this, to just clarify that these, this is the governance guidance document. It will be adapted by specific organizations and how they use it in operation. And we should not provide a formal specification here because it might not be appropriate for all the broad use cases. We don't want to narrow down it prematurely.
You said it so well. Can you type that up and resolve the comment?
I will. Yes, I will. I'm not,
because I've had multiple interactions with Mohammed, and I agree with you. But I'm trying to make this a productive discussion and not get into unnecessary fights. Okay.
I know. I suggest that. Yes, exactly. I'll do that. I'll do that suggestion.
All right. So this one is that we never talk about scalability later, but I argue that if you don't have scalability, you're probably going to have issues of performance or availability. Unless I'm missing something, and we can say something else about the solution and scalability specifically.
This is actually funny because on one hand speaking about the precise specification, then using words such as scalability, because scalability is extremely use case dependent. For someone having 2 threads is scalable. For someone it's like 20,000 is scalability, or in someone it's still not enough. So I think we should dig down, like refer just to the basic terms such as confidentiality, integrity, availability, and availability is, as you said, directly related to scalability.
So then we'll just say
scalable enough, then availability is
then we'll just say availability and performance and be done with it.
Yeah, I vote for that. Yes.
Okay. Makes it easy. Confidentiality and integrity. Oh yeah, Thomas said something about privacy. Now, so here's the thing: privacy may or may not be a consideration for AVS. In fact, it's probably something for the attestation SIG to discuss attestation and privacy. So case in point, original SGX in Intel had the EPIT scheme, And the EPID scheme was this group signature scheme that would basically say, through complex mathematics, this was, this signature was made by the XGX enclave. We'll never tell you which one. Because we sign like 1 million chips with the same EPID group key, and then so it's going to be one of these million chips. That's what the original specification was. And this, I'm going to date myself now saying I dealt with Intel back then. And I remember going back to Intel and saying, guys, for data center computing, we want the exact opposite. We want to know exactly which chip failed because we can go find it on the rack and fix it, or deal with it. There is no privacy here. You are running on one of our chips in the data center. We very much want the opposite. So then they went and devised a different scheme for us, right? Because the original EPID was for consumer devices.
Yeah, and and along the same lines, there's such a thing such as legal interception, this euphemism, and those guys also want to know exactly what's happening, so they don't want that. So again, privacy is in a certain context, and depending on the services that you offer and what you promise around those services. So yes and no, that's my answer. Like there are use cases for both.
Well, but the point is, what about like governance and privacy? Should we just leave this discussion for another day? We only have a couple of minutes here. Should we bring this up to the attestation SIG and say, we have a curious question to you guys. What about attestation and privacy? Should we just talk about it? Because I feel we're not going to solve it here.
No, I don't think this is for this forum, because I think this is a kind of a question for the attestation group. Like. Okay. And I don't think they will solve it either. But it's definitely a good discussion to have there.
Okay, so I'll leave this comment. Let's get just another comment here, and then we'll wrap up for the day because we're not gonna get to everything. The history of reference values. Attestation policies. Should we mention in here, because like to me attestation policies is this generic term that encompasses reference values and verifier policy and all sorts of things that drive the execution of the AVS. But perhaps I should be more precise and aligned with RAT's architecture.
I'm wondering how you separate out policies that govern the AVS, and as you mentioned, the AVS, those policies might be controlled by the AVS provider and operator, and other attestation policies are owned by the verifier owner. And I think Thomas is pointing out the ambiguity of using those terms here, just like he was above.
Okay. So perhaps another conversation then to have, and maybe it's with the attestation SIG, is what's the sum total of the assets that an AVS has? And one of them would be policies, like reference values would be an asset. From the point of, this is worth protecting, I would like to know the history of the reference values. I'd like to know who modified them, what, values, what exact reference values did I have in effect at any point in time. But what else is there? What is the sum total of it? And can we use that as the term attestation policy?
Right. The other piece of that is when, Microsoft decides to push a new patch to MAA, then you don't have any evidence to show that the actual attestation verification service itself, the code changed.
Yeah, and that would be important because, again, if somebody wants to do a clandestine subversion of my TCB, you can do it with your mobile phone. Deploy an update or install the update. The update takes security guardrails off. All of a sudden, your phone is exposed.
Right, and your term attestation policies there, I think, encompasses both of those threat areas.
So perhaps Mohammed wasn't that far off when you say formal specification, that we need to actually pay a little bit closer attention to exactly what it is that we mean. So maybe, Nikolai, your response is probably still correct, but I do want to take it in the right spirit and not have not have glaring holes.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and it's not the point to to skip it or to be dismissive. It's just to clarify that a formal specification would only work for today's version of whatever we have, and it would kind of really block the evolution of next generations.
Yes.
So, and I've seen examples of that. There was a formally verified kernel, for example, and well, that only works for that version of the kernel.
Okay.
Any changes, you need to restart.
So we're going to wrap up. I'm going to compose an email to the attestation SIG and send it and CC the GRC SIG, and I'll basically say we would like to have a conversation with you guys about privacy, and we would like to perhaps have a discussion around the sum total of assets that we need to protect on an AVS for purposes of governance. And we can proceed even if they don't respond, but I think it would be best to have this jointly developed. And then in 2 weeks, hopefully with some feedback from attestation SIG, we can proceed and finish this document.
Oh, Mark, before we go,
Yeah.
can you please send me the link so I can update? I think Alex is asking for me to upload the spreadsheet that I have.
The document that we are reviewing right
The
now?
one that I just, no, the spreadsheet that I just shared, he wants to take a closer look. So if I can upload it on the Google Docs, I'm not sure where I should upload it.
Oh, you just need the folder name.
Yeah, you can email it to me or Alec, and we'll put it somewhere.
Okay.
And I do need.
Okay, Alec, I don't know whether I have your email.
I'll put it in the chat.
Okay,
Just
thank you.
don't hang up until
I grab it. Okay.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
But I'm going to drop now, and I'll see you guys in 2 weeks.
All
Okay.
right, see you, Mark.
All right,
bye-bye.
see you in 2 weeks.
Hey.
Bye.
Bye. Okay, let me grab. Excellent. Thank you so much.
All right, great.
Take care.
Thanks, Olu. Have a great one. Bye.
You too. Bye-bye.